What is up, Nuggets? It's your boy, Killer Pizza, here with a brand new video for all you rascals and rapscallions out there. Now today, we're going to review a movie I've been talking about for a very long time, and that is 1989's Intruder, written and directed by Scott Spiegel. Now if you're not too familiar with Scott Spiegel, he's actually a childhood friend of Bruce Campbell in both of the Raimi brothers. And they actually made this movie titled Night Crew instead of Intruder 10 years prior in 1979. And after all the work Scott Spiegel did on Evil Dead 1 and 2, 10 years later from the original High 8 version, he gets his chance to make his movie, and it is amazing. I must say, from the start, this is one of the best slashers I've ever seen. It's so much fun. Though I consider the prime of slashers maybe 1978 through 1984, I would put this 1989 release right up there with all of them. I knew after my first watch I had to review this, so after my second watch, here it is. Let me explain. This takes place in a grocery store in Michigan, the Walnut Lake Market, I believe, and this touches pretty close to home with me because I am from Michigan and I have worked in a grocery store just like anybody else from Michigan. So we start off with our main girl, Jennifer. She's cashing her last customer out for the night before Night Crew takes over. Her ex-boyfriend, who looks a lot like Zane Silver, but with a mullet, a 5 o'clock shadow, and a badass leather jacket, just to know how bad he really is. He comes in there fresh out of jail. Apparently he killed some guy, but he got out after a year because it was considered self-defense. He gets in Jennifer's face, telling her, I'll do anything to get you back. I love you, blah, 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 sweet nothings and all this. She doesn't want anything to do with it. The other cashier, Linda, is freaking out, and Craig gets kind of physical with her. He's kind of pushing up on her. He ends up kind of not like hitting her, but shoving her, and it gives her a bloody nose. And I like this part of the movie. Not that I condone like a man hitting a woman. That's complete bullshit, obviously. But I like a hint of realism in my horror movies. I've mentioned it before that like too many people think if you add comedy into a horror movie, it's going to be a comedy horror. But I disagree, because who in the world wouldn't be joking around with their friends in everyday life regardless before they find out there's a killer? And this kind of applies the same way, like in the acting. Like, it goes from 0 to 100 real quick. I like the realism of, like, she does a good job. The girl who plays Jennifer, I must say. Because though she labels herself as like a scream queen in this movie, her acting is great. Like, how scared and shook she looks adds a hint of realism that I like, that I feel is needed in certain horror movies. But anyways, the rest of the Night Crew runs up. They break it all up, and this guy must be related to Zane Silver because he's got the karate moves. He just kicks a dude into the fucking one of the display stands. He takes on like 5 guys and takes off running. And here's where we get a little character development from the start, where all these characters are told by one of the co-owners of the store, like, let's split up and find him. So everybody's looking for Craig. They eventually find him, throw him out, and then we keep going on, and but Craig's not stopping. He's calling on the phone, harassing Jennifer. There's a point where like she's sweeping up an aisle, and she finds a note that's like for the handwritten note for like the displays, and it says like, "Oh, I love you. I'll do anything to keep you." And here's like something I really like about the movie, where like when she finds the note, she's sweeping the aisle, right? She grabs the note, crinkles it up. When she drops it, it cuts a camera angle from the ground up, so it shows the garbage hitting the ground. And when her broom sweeps, it cuts to black and goes to the next scene. I really like stuff like that. They do that too with like a camera angle inside of a shopping cart and whatnot. But anyways, yeah, they go to a scene where Bill, one of the co-owners, calls for a break. Everybody break time, and he tells this cool story, which I had to mention in this review, because he tells a story about how when he was a firefighter back in the day, they went to like a nasty scene where there was a decapitation or whatever, and he says like the main firefighter was eating a cheeseburger or something, or a sandwich before all this, and he finds the decapitated head and comes strolling up with the decapitated head while still eating the cheeseburger. You'd have to see how he tells the story. It will make sense later. But the reason I tell the story is because he mentions it was on Middle Belt and 9 Mile, which is 15 minutes from my house. So here's my 15 minutes of fame, you guys. Michigan. Anyways, we keep going, learn a little more about the characters and whatnot. Craig's still harassing Jennifer, and then we cut to upstairs where they have the office upstairs and a lot of like grocery store, department stores, and it's got the two co-owners, Danny, who's more of the corporate guy, and Bill, who I mentioned before, who is more of like the blue-collar guy, and they're talking about selling the store. They go downstairs, tell all these kids, start marking down all the items because we're selling the store. Everyone's all upset about it, but Bill's the blue-collar guy, tries to say, like, don't worry, we're going to give you a little bonus and everything. But all the kids are obviously really upset. Which I don't know why. They have all their lives ahead of them, or do they? Anyways, so yeah, we go into the second act. The second act starts where Linda, who I believe that's her name, she was the secondary cashier. Her boyfriend calls the store and tells her, when you're coming home, can you grab a couple things? He asks her to bring home some beer, which he asks for Corona. That's not funny, Linda's boyfriend. Corona's serious these days, so fuck you. Anyway, she goes outside, she gets a little spooked, and it turns out the killer, who is always at a point of view or a shadowy figure, so you never know who it is, he comes up with a knife, right in the back of the head, Jason Voorhees style. And here's something cool I like about the movie, because I have a sick mind. Like, when the killer hits her in the back of the head with a machete, it cuts right to produce where a watermelon's getting split. And they do this with pretty much every kill. And I can appreciate that. So yeah, she's done. And then Bill, the co-owner, is still looking for Craig. He ends up finding him outside. And just like I said with the kill with Linda, they fight a little bit. He's got a hammer in his hand. Craig takes the hammer, hits him. And then it cuts to produce again, where a sack of potatoes just hits the ground. Dropped like a sack of potatoes. And I gotta mention, if I'm talking about Scott Spiegel and his friends, both the Raimi brothers are in here. Ted Raimi is actually playing the produce worker, and Sam Raimi is playing the meat department worker. So at this point, we're going into the second act, and it's pretty much all kills. And when I'm talking about kills, I'm talking about kills. This is some of the best gore you will see, and I guarantee that if you're a fan of horror, worth watching for practical effects. We got Ted Raimi ends up getting killed off. He's kind of like a dork. Sorry, nerds. Sorry, Nate. He's got these headphones over his head, the old school headphones. He gets a knife in the back of his head, and his headphones just split in half. Like, that was kind of cool. Then we got the guy in the beer cooler. He's stocking the beer shelves and whatever. The killer comes in, knife right through the stomach, and the knife, I believe, goes through his stomach into the beer cans and starts spraying out beer, and the beer turns like red. At least that's how I remember it. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then we go into how can I not mention Danny, the corporate kind of boss? He's up there in the office punching numbers, and he picks up like this bottle of scotch or Jameson. It's got like a green bottle. When he picks it up, he sets it right in front of the camera. And the camera angle doesn't move, which, like I mentioned before, tons of cool camera angles in here. So the camera view is through the bottle of alcohol. So when the killer comes in to kill him, you can't see who it is. And what are those called where they have like those pins for they have them in restaurants and offices where you take your receipts or old checks and like punch them through so you know what I'm talking about, guys? But the killer takes his head and just like drives it through that spike, and it goes straight through his eye, and they show it. This is the director's cut. Unbelievable. Nasty, gnarly gore. What are some other good kills? Because this guy, for the whole half hour, is just going around killing everybody. He takes the one stoner guy, Bubs, and he takes his whole head. If you guys never seen like a baler in a grocery store, a big like trash compactor almost just crushes cardboard boxes and everything. He takes his head and puts it halfway through, crushes his head, and they show that too. His whole head gets crushed. It's if you're a fan of gore, fan of horror, gnarly stuff. And then we got Sam Raimi, of course. He's in the meat department. He goes walking in the back. You think he's about to get killed. He like this ladder bumps over by him, and I love this part because tell me if this never happened to you at work, where like he bumps in the ladder and it spooks him. The ladder falls, and he goes, "What the fuck? Who the hell put this ladder here?" Oh, it was me. You can't tell me you never done that at work before. Like, who did this? It was me. Whatever. So, the killer attacks Sam Raimi, and he puts him on the meat hook, Texas Chainsaw Massacre style, right through the bottom of his jaw, right through his head. And then Sam Raimi, as a pro wrestler, I gotta say, Sam, what a good sell. He's sitting there with his eyes open. The gore is awesome. And correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I did a review of Body Bags not too long ago, and I feel like Sam Raimi did kind of the same death, not with the hook, but he died with his eyes open. Tell me in the comments if I'm a jackass and I'm wrong, but I love the kill with Sam Raimi. The way he sells it is amazing. And then we go to the best kill of the movie. It's on the cover with the head sliced in half. On the back, hard to see, right here. Can't see it, it's getting too dark. But one of the stock guys goes back looking for Sam in the meat department, and this is when the killer grabs his whole head, and there's like that saw where you like split chickens in the meat department or whatnot. Like Levi Blue, you know what that is. What is it, Levi? And anyways, he takes his head, puts it through the saw, the killer does, and it's not vertical like you always see. It's like horizontal, and it's really nasty because it's right under the nose. So you can see all his teeth while he's cutting his head, and his scream is horrific, and there's chunks of meat flying everywhere. I sent this clip to Nick Baker and was like, check out this gore, man. And he was like, to be honest, I don't really like gore. And I think I broke Nick Baker that day, so that's cool. But that's worth watching this movie alone. You can find that on YouTube if you need to. Like, it is fucking wicked, man. Anyways, so we get in the third act, and Jennifer is noticing nobody's around. She starts walking around. She can't find nobody. She finds Sam Raimi hanging from the hook. Then the killer tries to get her. She's trying to close him into the freezer door or whatever, the cooler. She grabs a hook, cuts him right on the hand, gets away, and as she runs, she's getting stalked in the final girl kind of chase scene, classic slasher shit, and she's finding all these bodies. And in a part I really like, because I'm fucked in the head, is that she slides down like this little like conveyor belt, and when she gets down there, it's got one of the coworkers, and he's cut in half, and there's a little display sign in front of him that says half off. I like that shit. But anyways, she pretty much runs from this guy. She meets up with Craig, and she thinks he's the killer. Spoiler alert, it's not. She wonks him with something. He gets knocked out. Then Bill comes up, one of the co-owners. He says, Craig killed everybody. I tried to stop him. He hit me with the hammer. And she hugs him. She's hysterical, which he should be if you just seen all your friends get murdered. He goes to call the police and blame it on Craig. Or that should be the police. But she sees this part of his hand, and it's got a big old hole in it. And this is where slowing down the acting is better, in my opinion, because like she slows it down. They let everything sink in. She looks at her hands. She sees the blood. She thinks about it. She looks at him. He notices her looking at him. He looks at his cut. Then he got caught. So he starts chasing after her. Then we go into the real final chase scene of this. And I didn't want to give the spoilers away with this movie, by the way, but fuck it. It seems like the best place to get chased in a slasher movie is a grocery store, because like every time he comes at her, glass jar of peanuts, kapow, or here's another item, here's a block of meat, pow, or whatever it may be. But he's chasing her all around, and then we cut back to like the scene that was talked about earlier with like the firefighter on Middle Belt and 9 Mile with like the severed head, where like the co-owner Danny's head is like peeking out of the aisle, and he's saying, help me, help me, help me, which they showed a little earlier that he was still kind of like fighting for life. But Jennifer goes to help him, and it turns out this is where Bill turns into a maniac, almost in a cartoonish way, which I love for this type of movie. he's got the severed head on his hand like a puppet, and he's talking with it. Help, help, help. This dude has lost his shit. And he ends up carrying the head down, swinging it while eating a sandwich, referencing the part from earlier. She takes off running again. Craig jumps up. He's awake again. He says, hey, let's get out of here. I broke in through the window. That's our escape, which I can't really get behind Craig because he was a pretty big piece of shit in the first place. Just because there's a bigger piece of shit in the area doesn't give you an excuse to be a hero. So fuck you, Craig. Anyways, he gets dropped down again. Jennifer jumps out the window. She goes to a payphone, or they start fighting. Bill chases her out. They start fighting. She gets him in the chest with a knife. He's dead. She jumps to the payphone, goes to call the police. What do they say in the movie Scream? You know, make sure the killer is dead. Or Zombieland, double tap, man. Because the killer is always going to come back. He's back again, jumps through the phone booth tips. They start fighting and struggling, and this shit's pretty gnarly too, where Craig comes back to, and he has this butcher knife, starts cutting on him, Bill. And Bill puts his hand up at one point to fight it off, like Vader time. It's Vader time. And Craig takes the butcher knife, kabah, right through the webbing of his hands, and it cuts him up. It's so nasty. He just starts hacking him up, trying to kill him. So Craig and Jennifer get out of this alive. And this is where the police roll up. Bruce Campbell and another guy. This is where Bruce Campbell plays a cameo as a cop. And this is what I kind of like in some ways, because, like, you see sometimes the bad guy wins in a horror movie, but most of the time it's when they just kill them off. But this time, it's like they just arrest them because they see all these bloody bodies everywhere. So, like, why wouldn't you? You know? Granted, like, when they get to the cop shop or whatever, they can figure shit out and be proved innocent or whatever it may be. But, like, the movie pretty much ends there. Like, Jennifer starts screaming, like, oh, the nightmare's not over. I'm going to jail. Ah, screaming like a bitch, just like Adrian would. Love you, Age. Anyways, yeah, that's pretty much the whole movie. And, yeah, this movie's great. I'm glad I got to review this. Sorry for the lighting. I literally recorded this video like 4 times. I broke my phone Wednesday after I already recorded it Tuesday. Wanted to release it on that day. And then I fucked up a couple things and the retake. So this is it. Yeah, I would say, though, I highly suggest this movie. It's on Amazon Prime if you guys want to watch it. It's a type of movie where you can watch with your friends. Like, the characters in this movie have depth, but not too much. So, like, you don't know too much about each character, but they're all likable. And the kills are amazing. And what I mean by you could watch it with a friend is, like, you don't have to pay full attention to this movie. It's pretty cut and dry with the 3 acts. If you pay attention to this, you're going to see so many Easter eggs and stuff and little details. But you can also just sit back and chill. That's why I consider this like one of the best slasher movies I've ever seen. And the kills got to be good. It's worth it for the kills alone. So check this movie out, guys. If you've seen this before, let me know in the comments. Let me know what your favorite kill was. Was it the Baylor or the Sawzall or whatever, or the Saw, whatever you call it? Either way, yeah, glad I got to finally review this movie. 4th time's the charm, right? But anyways, guys out there, watch more horror movies. I know the coronavirus is out there. Stay positive, guys. Don't let nobody take your energy away from you, man. This is a bullshit time, so don't give people bullshit answers. Be yourself, man. Just keep it real. Stay true to yourself. Try to maintain. Work through this. We're all going to get out of this. Watch more horror movies. Blood, guts, gore. Like, comment, subscribe. Share this shit. Love you guys. Check you next time.